When a woman is deeply in love, her instinct is often not to draw closer right away, but to retreat. And one of the most powerful reasons she does this is fear of emotional exposure. Love strips away her defenses and makes her feel vulnerable, raw, and transparent in ways that she cannot always control. When she feels herself falling for a man, she realizes that her emotions reveal a part of her she has carefully protected from the world, and that realization can be terrifying. To ignore him, to withdraw, becomes her attempt to shield her heart from being too visible. It is not that she doesn't want him. In fact, it is often the opposite. The more she loves him, the more she feels the weight of being seen. When she ignores him, it isn't always rejection. It is her way of hiding how deeply she cares. Love magnifies her emotions, and she may fear that if she lets them show too openly, she will lose power in the relationship. She doesn't want to appear desperate, needy, or overly attached, so she chooses silence over exposure. By ignoring him, she creates the illusion of control, even while her heart is burning with affection. For many women, this behavior comes from a deep rooted instinct to protect themselves from pain. If she gives too much of herself away, she risks being hurt. If she reveals just how much she loves him, she risks him not valuing it or pulling away. Ignoring him is a form of emotional armor. It creates distance that makes her feel safer, even though it contradicts the intensity of what she feels inside. This is why men are often so confused. The stronger her love grows, the colder she may appear on the surface. Masculine men must learn to understand this paradox. When a woman ignores you at the peak of her love, it does not necessarily mean her interest is fading. It may mean she is overwhelmed by how much you mean to her. The masculine mistake is to respond with panic, chasing, or overanalyzing her silence. That only worsens her fears because it confirms her suspicion that she is too exposed. The stronger response is to remain calm, grounded, and steady. A man who can handle being ignored without losing his composure shows her that love does not have to equal vulnerability in the sense of weakness. It can coexist with strength. Ignoring is often her way of regaining emotional balance. She may need to step back to convince herself that she is not losing her identity, that she can still manage her feelings without drowning in them. This retreat gives her time to process her emotions, to sort through the vulnerability, and to find her footing again. If the man remains steady during this time, she eventually returns, often with even greater trust and openness. But if he reacts with desperation, anger, or insecurity, she interprets it as proof that her vulnerability is unsafe and she withdraws further. A woman in love is often in conflict with herself. She wants to be close, but she is afraid of being fully seen. She wants to give, but she fears losing control. She wants to be vulnerable, but she worries about being hurt. Ignoring the man she loves becomes her compromise. It allows her to feel safe while she processes emotions too powerful to show outright. So when she ignores you while deeply in love, it is not always a sign of fading affection. It is often a reflection of just how much she feels. Masculine men understand this and never chase in panic. They allow her silence, they trust her process, and they remain steady, knowing that her retreat is not rejection, but the natural reaction of a heart that is terrified of being fully exposed. When a woman is deeply in love, one of the most common reasons she might ignore a man is because she is testing his stability. Love, by its nature, shakes the foundation of certainty. It makes her feel vulnerable, uncertain, and even powerless at times. And when those emotions rise, she instinctively wants to know if the man she's falling for can withstand the weight of her feelings without losing himself. Ignoring him becomes her way of observing, not always consciously, but instinctively, whether he is truly anchored in his masculinity or whether his world crumbles the moment she withdraws. This test of stability is not about cruelty, it is about safety. A woman wants to feel that the man she loves is a steady presence, someone who won't be swayed by every mood, silence, or distance she creates. She knows that love will inevitably come with moments of uncertainty and conflict, so when she ignores him, she is watching carefully. Does he panic and chase, or does he stay composed and continue on his path? A man who collapses under the pressure of her withdrawal communicates weakness. A man who remains calm communicates strength, and strength is what deep love requires. Many men make the mistake of misinterpreting her silence. They think ignoring is rejection and rush in with desperate energy, calling repeatedly, demanding answers, or trying to win her back with exaggerated displays of affection. What they don't realize is that this frantic response only confirms her doubts. If he cannot handle the discomfort of her pulling away, how will he handle the greater challenges of life and love? By contrast, the masculine man recognizes the test for what it is. He does not chase, he does not beg, and he does not attempt to force closeness. Instead, he respects the distance, continues to live with purpose, and allows her to see that his stability is not shaken by her temporary withdrawal. This form of testing is deeply tied to a woman's nature. She may not even fully understand why she does it, but her subconscious seeks reassurance that the man she is giving her heart to is dependable. She wants to see if he is the kind of man who loses himself when faced with emotional tension, or if he remains grounded in who he is regardless of her actions. Her ignoring him is her way of creating contrast. It is through his reaction to her distance that his true strength or weakness is revealed. The men who fail this test often do so because they confuse masculine strength with control. They think stability means tightening their grip, trying to dominate their attention, or proving themselves through effort. But true masculine stability is quiet, calm, and unshakable. It is not about forcing her to stay. It is about being the kind of man who remains rooted in his identity, whether she is near or far. That steadiness is what allows her to feel safe enough to surrender to her emotions without fear of losing herself. When she ignores a man while deeply in love, she's not necessarily rejecting him. She is searching for reassurance. She wants to see if he can handle her silence without turning it into chaos. She wants to know if he is strong enough to stand firm without demanding her constant attention. The man who passes this test doesn't need to argue, explain, or prove himself through chasing. He simply lives in alignment with his mission, respects her space, and allows her to return when she's ready. So, when a woman ignores you in love, understand that it may be her way of testing your stability. Do not let panic define your reaction. Stay grounded, remain calm, and let your steadiness speak louder than words. That is what earns her deepest trust and respect. When a woman ignores a man even while she is deeply in love with him, one of the most powerful reasons is that she becomes overwhelmed by the sheer intensity of her feelings. Love has a way of flooding the heart with emotions so strong that they blur logic and clarity. For many women, this intensity can feel almost unbearable. She may feel excitement, longing, fear, and joy all at once, and the weight of those emotions can make her step back. Ignoring him becomes less about rejecting him and more about giving herself the space to breathe, to process, and to regain control over the storm of feelings she is experiencing. The irony of love is that the deeper it goes, the more confusing it can become. A woman who feels casually interested in a man rarely ignores him. She has nothing to lose and nothing to protect. But when her love is real, when the connection feels like it matters, that's when the intensity can overwhelm her. Every glance, every word, every silence suddenly carries meaning. She overthinks his messages, replays his actions, and questions whether she is giving too much or not enough. In this whirlwind, ignoring him becomes her way of stepping outside the noise. She withdraws, not because her love is fading, but because it is overflowing. Masculine men must understand that this silence is not always a signal to chase or to force closeness. When she pulls back, she is not necessarily asking for him to close the gap. She is asking for room to balance herself. If he misinterprets this and reacts with desperation or anger, it only adds to her confusion and intensifies the overwhelm. She begins to feel smothered, pressured, or even misunderstood. But if he remains steady, patient, and calm, she slowly realizes that her emotions are safe. His strength provides the grounding she needs to return to the relationship with clarity. Overwhelm is not a weakness in her. It is a natural response to deep emotional investment. Women by nature feel profoundly. They carry love not just in thought, but in the body, the heart, the spirit. When she feels deeply for a man, she cannot always manage the torrent of emotions with logic alone. Sometimes she must step back in silence, let the intensity settle, and then return with renewed trust. Ignoring him, in this case, is not distance, it is her way of coping with depth. For the man, the lesson is patience. Masculine men do not flinch when she withdraws. They do not need to fill the silence with noise, nor do they need to demand answers to her behavior. Instead, they continue to stand firm in their mission, their purpose, and their identity. By doing so, they demonstrate the emotional stability she longs for. This steadiness becomes the anchor in her storm. And when she feels that anchor, the very overwhelm that pushed her away becomes the same force that pulls her back even closer. Her ignoring then is not about him losing value. It is about her trying to manage emotions so powerful they shake her sense of control. The man who reacts with neediness proves that he cannot handle her depth, but the man who reacts with calm confidence proves that he is strong enough to withstand the waves of her emotions without being swallowed by them. That is the kind of man a woman can truly trust with her love. So when she ignores you while loving you most, understand that it may simply be her way of coping with feelings too intense to carry openly. Do not chase the silence. Respect it. Hold steady and trust that her heart, once it regains balance, will find its way back with even greater certainty. When a woman ignores a man while she is deeply in love, one of the hidden reasons is her craving for reassurance without having to ask for it. Love makes her vulnerable, and vulnerability always brings a quiet fear. Does he feel the same way I do? Is he truly consistent, or is his attention temporary? Instead of voicing these doubts directly, many women create distance. Ignoring him becomes her way of observing whether his feelings are steady enough to withstand silence. She does not want to beg for his affection or directly demand proof of his commitment. She wants to feel it through his natural actions, not through words she had to pull out of him. This is why her ignoring often confuses men. She is not pushing him away because she no longer cares. She is pulling back to see what he does when she is not giving him constant attention. She is silently asking, will he remain consistent? Will he respect the space without losing interest? Will he still value her presence even when she withdraws? For her, the reassurance she seeks is not about grand gestures, but about quiet steadiness, the kind of proof that only reveals itself in absence. Many men fail this moment because they misunderstand what is happening. They panic. They assume her silence means loss of interest, so they overcompensate, bombarding her with messages, demanding explanations, or trying to force closeness. But this frantic energy works against them. Instead of reassuring her, it confirms her fear that his emotions are fragile and easily shaken. She is not looking for a man who collapses under uncertainty. She is looking for a man who remains secure and confident even when she creates distance. The truth is, when a woman is in love, she wants to know that she is not alone in carrying the weight of the relationship. She wants to feel that the man is invested without needing to be reminded. Ignoring him becomes her quiet experiment. If he can remain calm, continue living with purpose, and still hold space for her without bitterness, she sees that his love is not conditional on constant validation. That reassurance gives her the confidence to open up more deeply, because she feels safe in its consistency. Masculine men understand that reassurance is not given through chasing or pleading, it is demonstrated through presence and stability. They know that when she ignores them, the right response is not panic but patience. It is not to smother her with attention, but to let her see through time and behavior that their affection is unwavering. The masculine man does not abandon his mission, his direction, or his calm center just because she has gone quiet. In fact, his refusal to be rattled by her silence is the exact reassurance she was seeking all along. This is where emotional maturity separates the weak from the strong. A man who demands constant feedback will fail her tests because he shows her that his love depends on her constant attention. A man who can continue moving forward, who can give her space without resentment, proves his depth. That depth reassures her far more than words ever could. So when a woman ignores you, even as she loves you, recognize that it may not be rejection at all. It may simply be her silent way of asking, can I trust your consistency without having to ask for it. The man who answers with steadiness, patience, and calm presence will always be the one who earns her deepest trust. When a woman ignores a man, even while she is deeply in love, another powerful reason is her struggle with her own independence. Love has a way of pulling her closer, softening her defenses, and making her want to surrender to the connection. Yet at the same time, a part of her fears losing herself in the process. Women today value their individuality, their freedom, and their sense of control. When she realizes that her emotions for a man are growing so strong that she wants to prioritize him above everything else, a natural instinct rises inside her to pull away. Ignoring him becomes her way of holding on to her independence while she navigates the depth of her feelings. This tug of war between closeness and independence is not about rejecting the man. It is about protecting her identity. She doesn't want to feel like she is losing herself just because she is in love. When she ignores him, it is her attempt to reassure herself that she is still her own person, that she is not dependent on him for validation, and that she can still function without being consumed by the relationship. The irony is that the deeper her love becomes, the more she feels the need to step back at times just to prove to herself that she still has control over her life. For the man, this can feel confusing. He may think her silence means disinterest or withdrawal of love, but often it is the opposite. The silence signals that she is protecting something sacred within herself. It is her way of balancing the vulnerability of love with the strength of independence. If the man reacts with insecurity, chasing her or demanding answers, he unknowingly reinforces her fear that the relationship might trap her. But if he responds with calmness, respecting her space, and maintaining his own direction, she begins to feel that being with him does not mean losing herself. Instead, she realizes that love with him allows her to remain whole. Masculine men must understand this delicate balance. A woman does not want to be swallowed by love, she wants to be complemented by it. When she ignores you, she's not asking you to fix her silence. She's asking you without words to prove that you can respect her independence. She wants to know that you will not smother her, that you will not demand her constant attention, and that you are strong enough to let her be herself while still holding the connection steady. A man who fails this test often suffocates the relationship. He sees her independence as distance and tries to close the gap by forcing closeness. But love that is forced never lasts. The man who succeeds understands that her independence is not a threat but a strength. He gives her the freedom to breathe, knowing that when she feels safe in her individuality, she will naturally choose to come back to him with even greater love. Her ignoring, then, is not rejection but recalibration. It is her way of reminding herself that she is still her own woman, even in love. If a man respects that, if he does not panic or collapse under her silence, he proves to her that he is not here to control her, but to walk beside her. And that realization allows her to give her heart more fully. So when she ignores you despite loving you deeply, see it as her way of balancing closeness with independence. The man who honors that balance without fear becomes the one she trusts to love without losing herself. When a woman ignores a man even while she is deeply in love, one of the deepest reasons often lies in her fear of being hurt. Love, at its core, requires vulnerability. To open her heart fully to someone means exposing herself to the possibility of disappointment, betrayal, or rejection. The more she loves him, the greater the risk feels. So sometimes when her emotions run deepest, she instinctively withdraws, not because she wants distance, but because she is terrified of what that closeness could cost her if it ever went wrong. Ignoring him becomes her shield, a way to protect herself from the pain she imagines might be waiting if she surrenders completely. This fear is not always logical. It comes from past experiences, broken trust, or even just the natural instinct to guard her heart. If she has ever been let down before, her mind remembers it vividly, and when she feels love growing, that memory warns her to be careful. Her silence then becomes her defense mechanism. She ignores him not because she has lost love, but because she is overwhelmed by how much she stands to lose. The silence is her way of asking herself, can I really trust this? Will he truly stay? Or will this end like before? For the man, this can feel confusing and even frustrating. He may wonder why, if she loves him so much, she doesn't simply embrace it fully. But what he must understand is that the greater her love, the greater her fear. A woman who doesn't care much will rarely ignore she has nothing at stake. But the woman who loves deeply is the one who sometimes retreats into silence because the intensity of her love makes her feel exposed. Masculine men handle this fear differently from most. Instead of reacting with desperation, trying to pull her out of her silence, or accusing her of being distant, they remain calm and steady. They understand that her withdrawal is not an attack, it is a sign of how much she cares. The masculine man knows that his role is not to beg for her attention, but to provide the stability that slowly dissolves her fear. He continues to live in alignment with his mission, treating her with quiet consistency, proving, through actions, not words, that her heart is safe with him. This is where trust is truly built. A woman who fears being hurt is not looking for grand promises or emotional speeches. She is looking for consistency. For the man who does not disappear when she goes silent, who does not lose control when she pulls back, and who does not punish her for protecting herself. She wants to see that his strength can hold steady even when she cannot. That steadiness over time reassures her that her fear does not need to control her. It is important to understand that this ignoring is temporary. It is not the sign of a failing connection, but of a heart learning to feel safe. When a man responds with patience instead of panic, with calmness instead of chasing, her fear begins to dissolve. And once it does, she often returns with more devotion because she has realized that this man is strong enough to handle not just her love, but also her deepest insecurities. So when a woman ignores you even while she is in love, do not see it as rejection. See it as her heart's attempt to shield itself from pain. The man who proves through calm confidence that she has nothing to fear is the one she will trust with everything,